Another thing that there's been allegations or things that have clearly happened that they don't like to talk about is cashful peerages, where you get a position as a lord in the House of Lords based on the donations you made to a party, and then when you make large donations they suggest you for a peerage, and then they go through an electoral position or electing or decision position or process where the archbishops of the Church of England will either support you becoming a lord or not support you becoming a lord, or the Queen will have her input regarding who becomes a lord based on donations made to a party. So this is pointless or undemocratic and an unfair system for working class people who've worked themselves up the ladder to the middle classes and not forgot their working class roots. It's very undemocratic, and it's not a democracy at all, just for the rich or the powerful or the barons or the baronesses or the aristocracy to appoint members of the House of Lords to assess bills and block bills based on who made the biggest donation to a party to be suggested for a peerage in the House of Lords, or who the Queen thinks will not question or challenge her position as head of state. So it's a shambles. So I probably won't vote in Britain ever again until the House of Lords is abolished and replaced with the House of the People, elected by the people, as recommended by the late Minister, Right Honourable Lord Protector Tony Benn of the British Labour Party, the old British Labour Party. And I just want to talk about Lord Protector Oliver Cromwell and Lord Protector Freeborn John. Now, this was a time in the 16th century, completely different dynamics and completely different world back then. But what it was, Lord Protector Oliver Cromwell, he was an independent Puritan, so it's different from the Puritans that travelled to the Americas and did some fucked up things. And so he said one man, one vote. England should be ruled by a parliament that has been elected by the people of the nation, and that also goes for the House of Lords. The peerage system, a period should be voted for. It's like in the Varna system in India. Your actions and deeds determine your position and status in society, not your birth. And so it's like Lord Protector Oliver Cromwell was a champion of the people when in regards to his military operations in Ireland. The Irish who bore the brunt or his wrath, you could say, were those who were in arms on Charles I's side during the Civil War. So the Irish who were not on Charles I's side during the Civil War were not harmed. In regards to Scotland, you had the engagers, those who engaged with the royalist side, the Charles I army during the Civil War. Then you had the Whiggamore Scots who sided with Lord Protector Oliver Cromwell. But Lord Protector Oliver Cromwell was very victorious in battle, and he stood side by side with his men when he went into war. He didn't hide in a tent and get pay other people, mercenaries, to fight his battles the way the royalists did. He stood side by side with his warriors and was prepared to sacrifice his life side by side with his warriors. Now, what people have done in Britain or the world, they've watched a fantasy royalist film called The Three Musketeers. Now, when I watched that film when I was young, I was like, yeah, go Musketeers, go, save Charles, save the king. But when you get older and you just read regarding the English Civil War and the politics, you're like, fuck Charles I, he's a fucking snobbish, probably what you would call a Dutch supremacist, egotistical, snobbish cunt. So Lord Protector Oliver Cromwell was a hero for removing that wanker's head. So I don't support they said Lord Protector Oliver Cromwell, he banned Christmas celebrations. Now, that is something I personally would oppose and challenge him on. I love the Yuletide winter solstice celebrations, but other than that, I don't support Oliver Cromwell for his strict independent Puritan Christian religious views. I support him more as a political Republican for his political Republican stances, political Republican views, because of his politics as a Republican. That's why I admire and respect him. And there was also Freeborn John, another parliamentarian freedom fighter, who was a Christian, but he later became a Quaker Christian. So my vision for a New Age House of the People, elected by the people instead of the House of Lords, is a New Age Cromwellians, Republicans, where back then there was distrust and disputes between the Protestants and the Catholics, but I don't get involved in none of that. That is of no interest to me. That's a personal choice of your personal devotion. But New Age Cromwellians, which is secular, Lords, Templar, whether it's the new religion in regards to the Christianity, whether it's the old Templar, the old religion, temporal, should I say, in regards to neo-paganism, such as the House of Celtic mythology, the House of Norse mythology, Saxon North mythology, and as well as Commonwealth peerages or lords for members of the Commonwealth nations, whether from India or Africa, Aboriginal Australia, or First Nations, Indigenous, Native America. So just representation, fair representation in the House of the People, elected by the people, who have a decision and have power to whether decide to approve bills to become law of the land or oppose or block bills from coming up the law of the land based on them being democratically voted for to be in that position of power. So I think that would be more fairer. So yeah, that's what I just wanted to get off my chest. I'm not celebrating the Jubilee. I don't give a shit about the Jubilee. I think they're a racist, nasty family. I think they're I'm not going to go into colonial history in regards to the British Raj and colonization, annexing of scramble for Africa. I'm not going to go into that just yet, but I pledge allegiance to Lord Protector Oliver Cromwell, Lord Protector Freeborn John, Lord Protector Dennis Edward Skinner, Lord Protector Tony Benn, Parliament and Country. The parliamentarians during the Roundhead Republic of Britannia did so much to establish democratic human rights for citizens of the land of the Commonwealth, and so it's parliamentarian freedoms that have been breached and violated after the Restoration, after Charles II returned to Britain and restored the monarchy, and put this whole royal assent and appointing from the Church of England archbishops who have positions appointed to them. So I do away with that whole system. Her Majesty Elizabeth II, she appoints paedophile archbishops. She's a nasty. They're just nasty. They put on this PA as they're a very nice family, but they're violent beggars. They're posh extortionists. And the way to put it is, if someone was to come to your shop or your business with an empty briefcase and say, yes, can you just fill this up with as much money as possible, or I'm going to smash your windows and break your son's legs. That seems to be fine and acceptable. But if someone was to come to your shop window and say, oi, fill up this briefcase with as much cash as possible by next week, or I'll be back to smash your fucking windows in, that sort of person has to go and spend a prison sentence. So extortion is extortion, whether you're from the aristocracy or from the working classes. So that's just all I wanted to say. So that's Govlove 84 Ira of OSNST Limited, and abolish the House of Lords, get rid of the monarchy. We want a Republican Commonwealth nations, and the head of the Commonwealth nation has to be rotated throughout the Commonwealth nations and not fixed to a Zionist Rothschild House of Windsor who blackmail the rest of the Commonwealth nations that we have to adhere to their politics, otherwise we'll be shunned or boycotted. So that's Govlove 84 Ira of OSNST Limited, Govinda Singh 1984, and yeah, that's all I wanted to say. So that's Om Shanti, the House of Lord Shiva.